Sounds good to me.
I would say everyone else is B as well. I think there's only one A tier team.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that too, Frito.
The next tier is
Everyone
B,
else is B?
Whoever you put in there. Not everyone
Not
else.
yet.
Like,
No,
Ah.
like Gladiators,
Everyone except for the
Dallas,
Outlaws.
London, they're all B.
She thought she had a free pass. Like, Outlaws are B? All right. Put the whole hands together to B tier. No, like whoever you would think is next to them in A tier really is B tier, in my opinion. And Bob seems to agree. So,
Yeah, definitely.
at least for now.
Right on the hit. Pulse Bomb gets nothing effect. Has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be.
Hello and welcome to the Overwatch League Recap, a talk show focusing on the Overwatch League. I am Blazing Bob, and today I'm joined by two usual suspects in Mel and I Play Games. How you two doing?
Hello, hello. Good to be back.
Yep, I'm here.
And for the second time on our show, we have the amazing, the voice that I can't stop listening to every other day on YouTube, Freedo from Your Overwatch. How you doing, brother?
Hi. A veteran in the game, as they call it.
Definitely, definitely. And can I talk you into doing another YouTube video every day? Because I'm really struggling on content. And yours is always good. Like, I can always click on one of yours and know that I'm going to be entertained for 10 to 20 minutes.
It's tough to know that I'm going to be making good content every day. So, yeah, since I've last talked to you, we have slowed down a little bit. But if some changes come to the game, might be hyped to crank out content more regularly. But
Yeah, you think you could maybe talk Eddie the Chump into coming back?
possibly. We'll see if it's in the cards.
Oh, that'd be awesome because I really miss him. And then Liam's been gone for a while, so
Well, they're not
I've-
gone, right? Aren't they just doing other things with your
yeah,
Overwatch?
yeah.
Correct.
But they're doing other things in other games. I want him back in my Overwatch, you know. It's your Overwatch, it's my Overwatch. I want him back.
Yeah. I mean, we've been begging Big Papa Jeff to change things to the game. Hopefully that's coming around, and they'd be excited maybe to get back into it with me and at that time. But I think we're kind of waiting for that. And otherwise, man, I've been doing it a long time. Not just by myself now recently, but 3 years of just grinding out tons and tons of content. And so I'm trying to keep my sanity.
Yeah,
It's
Fair enough.
difficult, like,
yeah.
as much content I've made.
And if you were to put one out every day, the content would lack, or you would just have shorter segments. It'd just be spread out between days. So I get it, but I just want more of you guys. That's all.
Sorry, Bob. I feel terrible now. You're gonna go through this.
No, he's gonna wake up every day like, oh, Bob is probably thinking about me right now.
I
Bob
literally-
just gave me that disappointed son speech where it's like, Dad, remember a couple years ago we got to go to Disneyland. Why don't we go anymore? And it's like, we can't afford it. It's like, how do I tell him? Like,
We definitely had the other day, Mel started one of your videos and I was in the other room and I was like, wait. I was waiting till today to watch this because I had saw it the night before, but I was like, I've been drinking a little bit. I won't take it in as well. I'm going to wait till tomorrow. And then she's like watching it in there and I'm like, why are you watching it without me? So it's definitely good stuff. Good
probably
stuff.
better when drinking, I'd have to imagine.
No, because you put a lot of information and like time into that, and like better drinking would be more of the jokester ones. Like Ragtag's great to watch like after you've been drinking.
Noted.
But so
Agreed.
we'll go ahead and get into the show. Speaking of YouTube, guys, we are growing. We just hit a little over 300 subs, so thank you guys for that. Special shout out to Siegel #1 fanboy on Reddit. Like, we just noticed, Mel pointed it out to me the other day, that you've been posting all of our stuff on Reddit. So thank you so much, man. That helps us a lot, and I don't know what else to say, but thank you very, very much. Also, I'd like to give a thanks to our recap producers, Shazir and Ridiculous Brent. Also, a big shout out to all of our Patreons. You guys really make this happen for us. We thank you so much. You help us get to different events. The whole reason we're able to record the YouTube interviews at the arena is because you guys paid for that equipment, because that equipment is not cheap. So thank you so much, guys. With that being said, unless anybody else has anything else they want to throw in, let's move into the episode. First off, league news. Now, this is actually kind of cool for a kid that used to collect baseball cards.
I'm right there with you, dude.
Well, then why don't you go ahead and cover it? Because I'm pretty excited about this. But if you're right there with me, go on.
Yeah. I just read about it today, actually. But the article says that the Overwatch League is partnering with Upper Deck, which is a company known to make collectibles like trading card games or posters, all this kind of like franchise stuff. So they're franchising with them, and expect to see trading card games coming for every player and team, or I don't know if every player, but at least the main players. But I would imagine that they will at least do everyone in the current teams, or everyone who's playing the active roster has collectibles for all the teams. So I'm super excited about this because, like you said, Bob, I grew up with trading cards. I would have all my albums and I would trade stickers or whatever it was at the time with my friends from school. So I don't know. I'm probably gonna start collecting my own trading cards. As geeky
Do you
as that
remember
sounds.
Pogs? Do you remember Pogs?
Yeah.
I do remember
I
Pogs.
don't. My brother was super into Pogs, so I like to steal them. So I had a lot of Pogs. But that's all I really remember about it.
I
You
like
had
that-
no interest in it. You just wanted
No.
to torment your poor brother.
That's now how trading collectibles works, Mel. You don't just take it from other people. You give him something in return.
Very subtly, she implied that she stole a lot of Pogs, though. So, like, she had some from her brother. She stole a large quantity from him that she now has as a collection.
Pretty sure I have
Oh,
more
man.
than my brother does now, but that's fine. But okay, my question about this though is like, yeah, okay, that's cool, but like, how many kids nowadays are collecting baseball cards? Or that's really the only one that I knew was big. But like, everything's digital now, right? Like, how cool is this going to be? Like, I feel like this is more of a boon for Upper Deck than it is for Overwatch League, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, I will tell you that they are giving away promo packs at the All-Stars game. So if any fan or listener or anybody that's just a nice person, if you get one of those, if you would send it to me, I would be forever in your debt. I would love to have those, and I would even open the pack on the show here. Like, I mean, it would be super, super cool. I'm not going to be able to make it. So if anybody can send me one, actually, Victor, Brick McVictory, our on-site interviewer, you should be able to get me some. So please get me some, because I would
Send
love
them
that.
over.
Do you think they're going to have stats on them and like
That'll
you
be
know
kinda
how
cool,
like
'cause then you can
baseball
make some,
cards
like,
that have
trading
them?
card games or something, or like
I mean, I guess they'd have to put
Overwatch
stats.
CCG.
Well, no, I just mean stats like their, per 10-minute stats. I guess you would have to do it for like season 1, like, but baseball cards used to have stats on them, like,
Yeah, I remember that.
like
Who knows?
how many All-Star games they've appeared in, how many stage playoffs they've appeared in. I
I feel
don't
like
know. I
something
think
with
that'd
such
be cool.
it's just something with such a largely changing meta, like so frequently. It's really hard to put stats on a card.
Not if they lock it down. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
We'll
Right?
be we'll
We're
we'll be
actually
talking
about
about
to talk about
that
that, dude.
in actually, let's just go ahead and move right into that. It's a great segue. So, Slasher, well-known leak boy for Overwatch. He's been right way more often than he's been wrong. Some people might not like him because he's very negative a lot of times, but I've met the guy in person and he's not really negative, he's not really a negative person.
He's
It's
not
just
spoken about the game.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
opinion.
yeah, and sometimes that comes off to others as negative, but either way, Slasher talked about how big changes were coming to Overwatch League and then going to follow in game later, which is a little weird for, you know,
Potentially,
everything.
he said. Potentially.
Yes. But basically the thought is, and what a lot of people are thinking is, Overwatch League Stage 3 is going to implement 2-2-2 role lock, and that's going to be kind of a show for everybody that plays the game, for a change coming later with the role lock in the actual game itself. And this makes kind of sense because with a role lock, you're going to be looking at least SR reset, if not full MMR resets, because you're going to have 3 different SRs. You're going to have support, tank, and DPS. So do you guys think this is happening? Because...
Well, Fredo, you've been following the tail of this kind of like rumor for a while, because you have a couple of videos about it already. So what do you think?
It's my favorite videos.
Just a couple of them.
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, the interesting thing about this, and I think the last time I was on here, either we talked about it on the show or a little bit afterwards, me and Bob were messaging each other. And at the time, I remember telling him, no way is this coming. Like,
Yep.
I had no faith. Like,
I was actually going to write you back the other day when I heard Slasher's comments. I was going to be, dude. All right, but sorry. Go ahead.
You're completely right. So at first, I didn't believe it, but mounting evidence has just been building. And, well, not to just sort of rehash every video I've made on the subject, but the short answer, the too long didn't watch version, is like Blizzard has a way of gearing towards things and sort of putting their toe in the water or putting a little feeler out there. It's almost like an Activision thing, by the way, because I followed Call of Duty before this, and they would have like leaks of things, but always on a schedule. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like, is this a leak? You never know, because things always leak on schedule. So that's the weird thing. Like I honestly think to some degree Activision leaks things on purpose, and like, you know, maybe the new COD game is a different style and they want to see what people think. It's sort of like a way to test essentially. But so anyway, that's not what I'm saying the Slasher thing is. That's completely different. But my point is, when Jeff comes out and says the progression of role lock will never happen or role queue will never happen, you know, a year or so ago, and then BlizzCon comes last year, and at that point I'm like, BlizzCon, we're going to see major changes to the game, right? Because people are unhappy. Nothing happens. But the big change was in philosophy at that time in BlizzCon. The devs were open to saying, and I almost got to see this in real time. I said this was going to be a short answer, and I'm realizing it's shaping up not to be.
No.
Anyway, whatever. We're in this. We're in it. But like, you know, not a lot of people know this, but I recorded an interview with some devs that had nothing to do with ranked mode, and obviously my audience cares about that. So I'm asking them questions about it, and their stock answer was, "We are very pleased with ranked mode." And then later on, you know, I'm like, it didn't really work out. I learned some stuff that I don't think my audience really cares about. We didn't end up using that interview. Those guys were great, by the way. The devs are always really nice people. But I sort of twisted some arms in order to interview Scott Mercer, and then he sort of, you know, laid out, well, ranked's kind of casual. And from there and that point onward, there was sort of like leanings towards, we're not happy with it. So it was like, you know, the company probably has a consensus that they go out to the press and say, oh, we're not happy with this. But internally, they're starting the you know, the shift was happening then at BlizzCon, where Jeff's like, you know, we might change something. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but it's like, I like the idea, but probably not. And then a couple weeks or months later, it goes on and on and on, where he's like, yeah, I love role queue. I think 2-2 would be great. It's like, hold on a second. Where were you a year ago?
I've been a fan of role queue.
I thought you said it couldn't happen, Jeff.
Well,
okay?
and
Whatever. Fast forward, you know, it gets more and more likely to the point now. The biggest key point, I'm sorry to sneak this in, but why haven't we seen any balance changes? Why did Jeff and Aaron Keller say there's no new balance changes? But do you like goats? You tried to kill it with the last patch. So clearly they're doing something, and I think it's role lock. And that's all these. I could give more little, you know, keynotes there, but I've talked long enough. So that's my argument. I put my credibility on the line that I think it's role lock or a version of it. But I think there's no way Jeff doesn't get the thing he thinks is great for the game. There's no way it's just like, oh, I think it's great, but the dev team, oh man, he's not only the lead of Overwatch, he's also like the vice president of Blizzard. Did you know that? Like, There's no way he's
Seriously?
not getting what he wants. Yeah, look it up. They treat him like he's just, oh, I'm just, the head of Overwatch.
Hi,
but like,
I'm Jeff from the Overwatch team.
he's a much bigger role than that. Like
I actually didn't know that. Yeah, I thought he was just like the leader of the Overwatch team.
no, he's a much higher role than that. Like,
Well, and
over
Papa
Blizzard.
Jeffy Cap
he's
Cap can wear
also
many hats.
he's also said, he's even come to terms with it. He said, I didn't think this was the way the game was going to go, but he said we have to look at what the game's turned into and what it is. And for him to not think the game would have went with people having mains was probably a little silly on his part. And like, but he has
He's
said
just
he realizes that it's different, But yeah,
Yes.
I
There's
think
a lot of reasons for that. But the main one I would say is the game's really hard. So trying to learn even multiple heroes in the same role is difficult. So yeah, I would like to see that. I would like to see it. The community likes it. I thought we needed it like a year ago, but as I said to Bob, I didn't think it was coming. But it solves too many problems at once, and this seems to be the right time. And there's no other changes coming. So I think it's that. Now, and Slasher said this is coming soon.
Well, and Jeff said on a dev developer update that it like something that the community has been asking for a long time is coming. Right? Like what else
he said
is the
that,
community
and then he said it on like Nateson's and a few other people's streams. But he said
that was it.
Something the community's wanted for a long time is coming, and something that nobody expected is coming, which was the workshop. Which is funny because the podcast I was on before Watchpoint Radio, where I started podcasting about Overwatch, Jaw was talking about mod tools from the start of that podcast till the end. So one person for sure did ask for it. But,
I was gonna say though, it's absolutely needed that a mode like this comes out. It's something that you said in one of your videos caught my attention because it's very true, and is that even after 3 years of Overwatch, sometimes roles like tanking, for example, are not even played how they should be played in the majority of the ranks. And it comes with an identity loss, I feel. Like, for example, just me as an example, I consider myself a DPS player. It's not only what I enjoy playing, but out of all the heroes in the roster, I probably play the DPS heroes better than tanks
Brig?
and healers, except for Brig. But that's a different story. But when I jump into rank, I almost lose that identity, right? But because, like what you said, you never know what you're going to get, and sometimes, if you really want to try hard, your best bet is just to fill into one of those roles. And this happens all across the board, where you've been practicing a certain role, but when you go into rank, it's like the Wild West. It's like, I don't know what I'm gonna end up playing because I don't know who I'm gonna get matched with. And I feel like that has affected like how the individual play style and the styles grow like that. And like there's like a loss of identity. Like people are just playing Overwatch all over the place because there was never kind of like that consensus, or it's not easy to establish with the randomness. Now, how they're gonna implement it, we don't really know about that. 2-2-2 would be the most obvious, and we've been talking about that. Do you think 2-2-2 is the way to go? Would it be harder to do anywhere else?
I think it's the easiest way to solve this. So as far as meta goes, I'd like to see a flex slot, but when people pressure me to like explain how it could work, then it, my argument crumbles, and I'm like, okay, fine, just 2-2-2. It's like makes sense. Because like what I see in the comment section, right, when I say a flex slot would be cool meta wise, like in theory of the game, but what it's going to turn into in ranked is that guy plays damage right all the time. So it doesn't really work realistically.
And
so
in Overwatch League, that guy plays Brig all the time.
And and what
probably Diva though, but yeah.
What I pitched to Nate opening week was a 1-1-1-3, and little did I know Sombra was going to come in. So if they did a 1-1-1-3, it'd just still be goats with Sombra, And so like,
right,
I actually wasn't on the 2-2-2 bandwagon then, but I definitely am now. I just think it will make everything better. I mean, we'll have to see a lot of changes to a lot of characters, but they've been doing that a long time. I think it would definitely be a good thing for everybody, and it just for anybody getting into Overwatch now, that's now seeing Overwatch on ABC and they'd never heard of it and now they want to play. It would make it phenomenally easier for them to jump in and know what they need to swap to and not have a ton of choices. And I mean, even playing with friends, like if you're in a six stack, sometimes somebody gets tilted and they switch to DPS and they're a tank. I've done it myself. Or they're a support. They switch to DPS because they're like, you know what, that I'm just done. Well, you wouldn't have that option anymore. When you queue with somebody, you would look at their SR in their whichever of the 3 slots. You'd be like, okay, well, I'm agreeing to play with you if you're playing support. I'm agreeing to play with you if you're playing DPS, and I think it'd just make everything across the board easier. I mean, I think it'd be huge.
And as you said earlier, well, sorry.
No, you're fine.
The problem is if you have any flex slots, it doesn't fix problems in one area or the other. So like you're saying, it won't kill goats if you don't lock all the roles, and it won't solve some problems ranked has if you don't lock them all as well. So it does limit you in a bunch of ways, but I'm trying to think of the quote. Creativity comes with limitations or something. I'm probably butchering that, but that you could be more creative inside your own play style when you simplify the game and it's not overly power creeped with 3 supports, 3 tanks. It's just not possible.
Absolutely. And for Overwatch League itself, I think it gives stability to the league and to some of these players. If nothing happens with GOATs, what do you think would happen to next season of Overwatch League? Almost all DPS would either be traded or be gone, because if they expect to just keep playing more GOATs, why would you keep DPS players? It just makes no sense.
I will say we've seen a lot more flashy Zarya play since DPS have been playing Zarya. Like Spree used to be one of the best Zaryas in the league. He's not now.
Now we got Sinatra. It's true.
But Zarya in GOATs is a very different character than Zarya in just a regular 2-2-2 comp, right?
Yeah, she's almost not playable at the moment in a 2-2-2.
Right. So like Spree excelled at Zarya in what was the meta called? Like a
dive.
Well, dive, but it was like Reinhardt, Zarya, 2 damage and 2 healers, right? So like it was a completely different playstyle. Same with Lucio and all of these characters. Like a lot of them don't play the same in a GOATS meta as they do in a dive meta or a tank meta or whatever it is.
Which we've seen from Jonak's play in Season 2. Like he, in dive meta, playing defensively like NYXL does, Jonak was a god. Now Jonak's just a really good Zen.
Okay, well, 2 things here. So one, Shazir brought up in the chat, like reducing roles to like flex or like main tank, off tank, main support, off support. And in my opinion, it's too much. Like
it's too specific.
It's too specific, and there's too many crossover roles, right? Like you can play 2 main supports and get away with it. You can play 2 off supports and get away with it if you have the right composition behind you, right?
And you can play 2 shield tanks if you have a Bastion at most elos.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, depending on the composition, like your off support might become your main support.
And what do you classify Wrecking Ball as, right? Like a main tank, yes, I guess, but
that's what he's been played as. But like they probably developed him thinking he'd be an off tank, thinking he'd be a diva sub.
I think they developed him thinking he'd be a main tank, but I don't know.
From what they've said, I don't know if they don't know if they necessarily have those distinctions, actually.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like those distinctions have been made by the community themselves, by how they have been playing the game in a way to kind of get more specialized, right? Like there's the guy that tanks all the damage and the guy that's supporting him behind you, right? But that could be anything. Like we've seen sometimes Doomfist acting as the main tank, right? So like those roles are sometimes interchangeable, but like the definition of a hero, right? Like what they're kind of designed to do. I think tank, DPS, healer are like the most encompassing of all.
Right. Like,
Yep.
is Lucio a main support or an off support?
It
Yeah,
depends. Like
That term's a pet
before,
peeve of mine.
yeah, okay. So before dive, Lucio was a main support. Zen was the off.
Right.
But then like I guess in goats, Lucio be considered a main support too, just because of the amount of healing that he can do within like everybody standing in a clutter. So it changes depending on the meta.
Right.
The pros
I guess
wouldn't really define them based on the healing amounts, though. So, like, when you say a main healer, that's a different thing from main support. The reason why they called it main support back in the day is because, well, one, you never swap Lucio, so that's one reason, right? You needed some dedicated Lucio player.
he
It
is
was
a
a
main
role in its
support.
own, right? But Mercy is also the main support, and it's not really healing values, really. But in ranked, you do think about healing values because the difference in how much healing you get matters so much. Whereas the pros, they know how to play around each healer, and it's more like playstyle enabling, where Mercy's for damage boost, Lucius for speed. It's not really healing's not really into it, I'd
Right.
say. But
So, what do
anyway.
you guys think the effects would be of them implementing this in Overwatch League prior to implementing it in competitive?
I think
Uh,
the effects are good because I think the player population is going to need some time to digest this, especially with an MMR reset. Like the players that have been in Masters for the last 5 seasons that have only played 10 placement games and still call themselves Masters players are going to struggle with this change. They're going to be a
Although
little upset.
I would say the community is ready for it. Like the second it hits, I think that everyone's gonna be like, okay, let's go. If it hits tomorrow, I think people would be ready. Ideally, I think it would hit Overwatch League and ranked at the same time. Maybe this is just me, but I think for them it's harder to do it simultaneously.
I
Overwatch League is a smaller sample of really controlled players, right? Like you know what you're gonna get. Like they're gonna get there, or if there's a meta to be discovered, they're gonna discover it first.
But I guess in
And
history, like everything's been implemented in competitive first to test out before putting it
the
into
Overwatch League. Yep.
the Overwatch League scenario, right? So, like, I understand why they would do it, and I understand it's easier to balance a 2-2-2 with the best of the best than it is a 2-2-2 with bronze to GM. You know what I mean? Like, that's a harder balancing task.
And
the weird
I think you're right. I think that they just don't have it ready yet for the game. I don't think they have it programmed. But sorry, if you were going to say something, Freedo.
well, on the league, you're creating a custom game, right? So you can edit the rules super
It's
easy. Just be
already
like,
in there. Yeah, it's
Yep.
the roll lock is already in custom
yeah, you
game
can already
now.
roll lock in a custom game, but you have to create a whole new system, new SR rankings, whole new interface. And like you said, there's gonna be a rank reset. Like I don't think it's as easy to implement, but in Overwatch League is like we could do this right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying out there. I play. But the weird thing is, beyond everything you just said, which I agree, as far as the player base's, I guess, interaction with it, I don't think it changes all too much because a big percentage of players assume 2-2-2 is the best way to play all the time anyway, even when that's not the case. And that's always my counter argument when people talk about creativity and like Bob explained the main tank going to damage option. Honestly, this idea that you can swap, you can play lots of roles, or the community was utilizing creativity. Maybe I'm just too harsh when I say things like this, but like the community has not handled these things well. Like it's not like the community's just understood the game and it's been developing these complex. No. Most of them just assume 2-2-2 is what you should run, even when that's not true, right? Even when
Yep.
it's like Brig should be a DPS. Like, oh, why are you picking Brig there? Or like the community doesn't actually know how to command these things, and it seems
Dude.
like a cruel way to say it, but the game needs to be simplified so that they can easily press a button and it all be solved for them, and that's what I like about it.
Even in our like diamond level 6 stacks, I can't talk my team into going goats unless it's King's Row. Like I literally can't talk him into doing it because nobody wants to do that. Like nobody really wants to play goats. I
They also might not
enjoyed
know
it.
how as well, right?
True.
So like,
But
which
these guys do. Like the guys that we
Well, yeah,
play
it's not
with
very fun.
definitely do, and they just don't want to do it.
They're on their ults.
But we need to stick a cork in this because we could probably talk a whole episode on it, but we have stuff to move on to. So we're going to move on to team news. Dallas Fuel signs tank player Trill, who I personally think could start as main tank in half of the AL teams currently playing. So
Oh, I thought you meant instead of OG. It was like, what? You're gonna have OG cry at the Dallas Fuel home
Yeah.
game and then just bench him? Don't do that to me.
I don't think OGE is going to be like I don't think he's going to come in for OGE, but I find this interesting because it feels like they're bringing him up because somebody was trying to poach him. That's what it feels like to me. But what do you guys think of Trill?
I like Trill a lot. I've watched him play for quite a long time because he's always showed up at the World Cups. Always looked really good there. The thing I like about him is that even though he might not be the best, he always had what it's a football phrase, but a nose for the ball. And if you know what that means, I think he shows that where like he goes at the play and commits to things and makes decisions where even some Overwatch League tanks, and this is why I would agree that I think he's better than maybe at least some of the bottom tanks in the league, that he's willing to do that and lead in that way, because he's shown to do it up against odds when his team wasn't even as good as the other team. Like he would still be in there getting his, not like on a Gouchway level, like his mechanics are just so insane, but more
like
so
on a
in just
Fusions level of like I'm getting
possibly.
a sore
I don't know
throat.
about his calling necessarily, but his play looks similar in how decisive it is.
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna
mean, I
say-
think do they have another do they have another main tank? Like, do they have a backup fuel?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
Coco left,
It's a
right?
good thing to have.
right? Like, you can't just expect OG to never ever be out or get hurt or whatever.
Or it's
Like,
practice
Or
as
get
well.
sick. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm
it's
saying.
Scrim practice inside of the team.
Oh, that's a good point. Screen practice.
Right. So I think in all, it's a good signing for them. I think they need a backup off tank, and I think he can probably learn a lot from OGE just being on the scrim roster, right? And maybe they're just building him up for trade bait too. Like who knows?
Well, and like I mean, he is a really good main tank. I mean, Envy's Fuel's contenders team, I think last season only dropped 6 maps, only lost 6 maps total or something. It's either 6 or 9, but either way, like he's definitely good. But the weirdest part for me was they pulled him up before the contenders. I don't watch a ton of contenders, but the contenders, there's something coming up, and they're not gonna have Trill now for it.
Well, probably because if he played in that contender season, he couldn't play in more than 2 games in the next Overwatch League season.
Yeah, but it's
Right,
like it's called Showdown or something
Showdown,
like
yeah.
that.
The showdown and then the gauntlet after that.
Right, but I guess like the rules, I think people are more sensitive to the rule book right now because of the whole fusions fiasco, right? Like you can't play anymore in the Overwatch League, right? Like so I think that's might be a little bit of what they're getting. And let's be honest, like okay. I'm not a huge contenders fan. I mean, I like contenders. I think they're great, but it's like a feeder program, right? Like if you can get up to the high, top leagues, you're going to. You're not going to wait to win it out for your team in the contenders league, right?
Well, we've
Although,
talked about that
At this
before.
point, contender is becoming a little bit more. It's not only like a talent showcase, but I think it's also where a lot of the new metas or creative kind of strategies get developed because you got teams that are not contesting for the highest stakes. They're not yet on salary. You don't have like this super established meta that you have to be going against the best team in the world. So I think you have more leeway to be creative with these things. And like Goat's meta, for example, I think that it was perfected in contenders before it was even a thing or like a mainstay in Overwatch League. So I don't know. Contenders is shaping it to be kind of like a good scouting ground and kind of like experiment area, I think, for a lot of these teams.
Aren't we coming up on the signing
true.
deadline too? Isn't like teams can't sign players after stage 3 starts or something like that?
I'm not actually sure on that.
I don't know if
I know
anyone
there's a
said it.
deadline.
Last year it was kind of public. People talked about it,
Hmm.
but I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, so maybe that had something to do with it too.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I
a
know
good
there
point.
is a deadline when you can't trade or, make people active. And I think that's when like players who weren't 18 before X date couldn't play in the Overwatch League that season. It was like that deadline date, right? Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
so.
Oh well. Moving on. Mayhem signed support Briem from NRG. I know nothing about him at all. Does anybody? All right, moving on. So another really
Sorry.
good one. I mean, we gave him the news, but sorry, we just don't know anything about that. But
Good
the
luck.
I mean,
next
we
one,
can talk about Mayhem with the next point here.
yeah, the next one we definitely know. Valiant trade Fate to Mayhem for McGravy, Shax, and Shax. Did I say that right? And Fact
Yes.
Fiction.
Wait, so what? This was like a 3-for-1?
Yeah. I mean, well, they got Fate.
Okay, you get
who-
one starter for 3 backups. Like,
It's like they're already doing that trading card game
Yep.
that's about to come out.
I don't know if those guys are backups though, because again, like you guys are talking about contenders, and I'm with you with like I haven't watched contenders in a long time, but some of these players I did get to see quite a bit of, and both Shax and Fact Fiction, if they've been grinding in the contenders season, they're playmakers, man. Both of them. Fact Fiction was in. You might have seen him with the World Cup. Not.
He's
You
been
might have
around
seen
for
him
a
on the
long time
Outlaws.
in the pro scene. Yeah.
Well, he also played at the
Yeah,
Stage 4 finals last year for the Gladiators when Fisher disappeared.
No, that wasn't Fact Fiction.
Was it not?
Fact
I
Fiction was on
swear
the
it was
Outlaws.
Fact Fiction.
Fact
No,
Fiction.
Fact
Who am I
Fiction was on the
thinking of?
Outlaws.
Who
Yeah,
am
it
I
was an
thinking
I
of?
remix.
I remix. Thank you. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, Fact Fiction's better than I remix. Let's not mix those guys up. I think Fact Fiction's way better than that. But Shax, especially his projectile play, is solid. And I think the cool thing about the Overwatch League is I feel like if you take a hydration level, like Shax and hydration, I think are like facsimiles to each other, where you take these Western, I think he's Western, right? I'm pretty sure. Projectile players with good coaching just do well in the Overwatch League, where like I almost can see how each one of them plays, and with a little bit of TLC, their play really gets buffed up to a point where it's competitive. Because the thing is with projectile players, though there is a high skill cap and mechanical skill, it's not, in my opinion anyway, it's not as hard as like Widow, where it's a very shallow skill set. Either you mechanically can hit this shot, or you just are useless to the team. Sorry. Whereas
Agreed.
the flex DPS role is a bit more prediction and a bit more like learning up your game sense of playing smart, because as long as you can hit far rockets in the Overwatch League, once DPS is back, then I think you can be pretty decent in OWL, and I see Shax being able to do that. Genji maybe not as hot as Genji's decent, but you never know until you go up against the Haxels of the world, but doable, winnable.
Well,
Yeah,
I just don't. Who's gonna is Fact Fiction gonna tank for Valiant, or is Kooky?
I
I
think
don't know.
Fact Fiction's a better Reinhardt.
I think that they might be trying him out because Cookie has done all right, but he hasn't been a standout tank or a leader at all for the
Well,
team. So
he's played in Custa's spot. I mean, like give the guy a break. Like let him play tank.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'd be nice to see people playing their real roles. Consistently, we
Listen,
did get to.
I
Doesn't want
I
to see
remember.
Ryu Tae-hung on Winston again.
Okay.
Like, I'm just saying.
I remember all of us sitting there. You Freedo, me, Mel, and sitting there watching Kooky come out and Custa's spot at opening week and being like, and I was like, what's going on? And you specifically, I remember you saying, well, Custa's got to be sick, right? And we were just like, what is going on right now? But like, I mean,
He was sick with a big brain.
the main take option over Fact Fiction, though.
Jack of all trades, master of none is my opinion, though. And Fact Fiction is a Reinhardt at heart. He's always played it. His Winston
That's the thing, though. His Winston's okay. His Winston's decent. His Reinhardt, I think, is good. So, what do you do in a meta that you have to swap, right? Like right now you play Winston on offense sometimes and Reinhardt on defense. Like what do you do when those are the things? Could fact fiction be your detriment because he's so much stronger on one of them?
Well, the way I see it is, if nothing changes in Overwatch League, you're going into GOAT's meta anyway. So having a solid right hand player is a good asset. If things do change and you go into 2-2-2, who knows how the meta is going to change? But more than likely, we'll see some dive, some bunker, mostly those two. And you got fact fiction that I think can fill in those two. You can play the Winston. I don't know, I haven't seen his Orisa, but I imagine it's pretty decent as well.
I
Shax
don't
is
know that
pretty
I've
good in
seen
Orisa,
any
but-
good Orisa in the Overwatch League besides Gesture last year in the finals. Like, that was good Orisa.
Listen,
I mean, the
Muma's got
rest
pretty good
Orisa
Orisa.
is like bunker, and I mean, what Gesture was doing at like in the season 1 finals was he was shooting his shield up to his team when he wasn't even on the high ground with them. I mean, it was sick.
So many nasty pulls. Oh my god, into Dragon Strikes.
Yep.
Oh,
I mean, it
destroy
was
them.
awesome. Like, I thought Orisa was going to come into the meta at that point and be like played a lot more because of Gesture's play. But I haven't seen really anybody else really do the Orisa
I'm a little bit
justice.
biased, but I do know that Muma can produce a very good Orisa. He really
Oh,
can.
and I bet he's good at ball, and I bet he's good at monkey and Reinhardt. I bet he's good at everything. I mean, he can play whatever you want.
He is. Thank you. I'm glad you understand.
Symmetra too, of course.
Well, that's his like top hero, but yeah, let's move on.
The question I
All
got
right.
for the Valiant is: are they just going to Western players only though? Like Kuki's gonna be looking for a trade or something because it looks like they're trying to go a Western lineup.
Well,
So,
maybe Kuki's already
maybe.
looking for a trade because he's on support and needs a tank. He's like, you guys are gonna get out of this hellhole. Like, what's happening?
I don't even know where I'm standing here.
But can you call Custa Western?
I
English
mean,
speaking is what I mean.
Shax is
Yeah, he
from
speaks English, so
Denmark,
he fits.
so like, come on.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on. It was definitely an interesting trade. The in bare hands we trust, as people have said before, but haven't been able to trust that
People.
here in season.
Deathblow and Blevins are the
Deathblow
only
and
people
Blevins.
that
Yep,
said
yep.
that.
Deathblow and Blevins. Shout
Come
out
on.
to our friends from High Noon Podcast. All right, moving on. So let's just jump right into the big game. The rest of them we might hit on a little bit after, but I mean, really, the semis were kind of the same thing that they were last year. Like, it really wasn't good games until we got to the finals to the two
Okay.
S-tier teams.
But
Titans,
same as last year, there was a
not
upset,
last year, last stage, sorry.
or last
I
stage.
didn't
There
mean to
was
say
an
that.
upset at the quarterfinals that ruined everybody's brackets, and then it was crap semifinals, and then it was good finals. Throw that out there.
Yeah, well, we had the Titans and Shock rematch. It did not go to 7 games, which would have been epic. I would have loved to see that, but Shock end up winning 4-2 against the Titans in the final match of the playoffs. I know a lot of us were thinking this was going to happen, but what did you think of the match? Specifically, I want to know what you thought of the bumper play, Freedo.
yeah, actually, weird thing is, I thought he played more passive than he ever has, and I'm
Mm.
surprised people didn't mention this more. Where
Definitely.
fights were extending out a lot more than what Vancouver typically allows for, where typically Vancouver's game plan was to sacrifice bumper to get damage done. Because the GOATS meta, it's very interesting how everything plays out, where if you have Reinhardt deeper than you've ever seen him in the enemy team, he's going to die easier, but he's going to be able to hammer more players at once. And that was at some point, I can't remember, I wish I could pull this off the top of my head, but there was a stat that Captain Planet had pulled up on the broadcast in a little blurb, and it was like bumper averages hitting 2 or 3 players with each swing or something crazy, right? Like, I don't remember exactly what it is, but point is, they're using him as sort of like a Diablo 2 barbarian. He's got that whirlwind skill. It's a great reference if you know what I'm talking about. But that's pretty much how they use him, where their positioning as well, typically, to me, it felt to me like the team always played Bumper either like he's a wrecking ball or as if he was just a hammer, because they position as if they didn't have a shield, essentially is what I mean when I say that. Where they're like, Slime's never getting shattered, the whole team will get shattered, but Slime's ready with the sound barrier, and we saw that happen especially on the King's Row clip where Bumper gets a better shatter than Super does. That's pretty epic interaction there. Slime never getting shattered, always has that ready, so they're almost like baiting you into getting a good earth shatter. But that still happened, but oftentimes Bumper wasn't extra deep, making the crazy space that he's made in the rest of the season. So I almost wonder if it's one of two things. Either it's like coaching assuming like, let's have you die less, not realizing that actually is the reason. In my opinion, when I saw the stage 1 finals, I'm like, this is the reason why they're winning. I mean, how do you
Right.
stop this? Because he would play so aggro.
He just charged all the way to the back of the line and then
Right.
shattered 6 people.
which wouldn't work for everybody, but it worked for them because they would trade it out, right? So like they would thin out the fight, because there's different stages of the GOATS matchup where some teams are going to be better in the neutral and the slow game. New York wants to play the poke style. They were the complete opposite of that, where they were trading things out. We want to get this into a 3v3, then we'll mechanic you in the mid fight. And they didn't have clean ults ever, but they would clutch it, and they would always clutch it. But because they weren't creating those scenarios enough, it's either them not doing it and pressing the gas, or Shock was just so much better coached now where they're absorbing that and there just was no openings. So I'm not sure who to credit in that. And probably Shock a bit more.
I personally think it's the latter. I think that you got to give a lot of credit to Shock and the coaching. Like Krusty, I think nailed it. And I'm just speculating over here, but I was rewatching the finals today, and if you watch how Vancouver was engaging, they wanted to engage it that way. That is the way they engage. Like you were saying, they throw Bumper in there, barbarian style. Let's go support him and like get things done. But Shock, if you watch almost every engage, they were so good at just conceding space. And several times they outright just gave up a tick in the point. They let them capture the point first several times, and they would actually just reeled him in almost to the point where if he got more aggressive, he would be overcommitted behind the wall or in outside of the point, where they could easily just like fall back on him and kill him. So I agree with you. Bumper just was not able to play as aggressive as he could all the time. One thing that I noticed too is not only would they try to lure him into overcommitment, but they had Moth constantly just kind of like flying around him, kind of like a moth, and just waiting for that boop. And several times he caught Seomisu and he got Bumper a little bit too forward, and just the boop was just enough to like push him forward. He did it to Haxel several times too. So I think that just Shock was so disciplined. And I said it in other episodes before, I think they're playing some of the cleanest Overwatch that I ever seen, in the way that they do their pathing, in the way that they save their cooldowns to be reactive, and in the way that they can predict what the enemy team is going to be doing several times. There was one play that really highlights this, and there's a clip of Super reviewing his own play. It happens in Paris, and he does a shatter towards the door where there's nobody there. Nobody's at the door, and he does the shatter, hits nobody, and Doa is like, "Oh my God, he hits the shatter, hits nothing. What is he thinking?" Or something like that. And then there's a clip of Super like rewatching that clip and being like, "Okay, Doa, okay, let me tell you what I was thinking."
Yeah,
And
he was trying to
explains
be preemptive.
Yeah,
He was
basically he
thinking
says,
someone's
"Look,
coming around the corner.
I'm seeing the Diva Bomb come through the air. I'm seeing the Winston jump behind the Diva Bomb. They're obviously engaging, and the only other location where the rest of his team can come from is through this door." So he literally waits for the Diva Bomb to explode, and then immediately, without even looking, just shatters at the door. The shatters falls flat and doesn't hit anyone. But I think it's a great example of how the Shock is playing the game and how Super is playing the game. He's not just only waiting for things to happen, but he's reading the game constantly and trying to be one step ahead. And they were one step ahead of the Titans several times this match. I think it was super well played by them in general.
Well, and
right?
like one of the points that you made was them putting themselves in the right position for Bumper to not get those, crazy aggro moments. And that just goes to both of these teams, to be quite honest, are the best in the league at GOATS rotations. And rotations is something that a lot of the teams really struggle with. And 4 or 5 of them will rotate correctly, but one doesn't, and one person means a lot in the game of Overwatch. And so, like, I think their rotations are really good, and San Francisco just really did their homework on where they needed to rotate at what times.
But I think one of the biggest difference between San Francisco and Titans, but San Francisco specifically right now, is from the league is that they're able to adapt. They don't go in with a set plan and tunnel vision on it, right? Like they go in and they realize what the other team is doing and they adapt to that and they make changes for that, right? Like nobody has been able to punish Bumper's aggressive Reinhardt play that everybody thinks is so easy to punish, right? Like your freaking Reinhardt charges into the back of the line. Why can't you punish that, right? Like nobody has been able to do it. But San Francisco was. And I think their ploy was they're focusing Bumper down way quicker than anybody else did, right? Like, and they're not allowing the rest of the team to do anything. Then once Reinhardt's dead, now the team's kind of like, oh crap, what do we do, right? Like, they don't have that momentum of Bumper being able to kill one or get 3 low or whatever. And I think they made the mistake of not punishing Moth, like I play with saying. Like, the Titans didn't punish Moth. Moth could have been focused down so many times. He was just
It's
riding
not as easy
around.
because he's like flying around, and you have goats. Like, who can focus him? Maybe your
I mean,
Zen?
Diva Zarya, Lucio could have booped him out of their backline. Like, I'm just saying, they did not focus on Moth. Moth was not a threat to them in their mind at that point, and I think they regret that because I think Moth made most of those plays happen.
Well,
It's tough
yeah.
because a lot of teams like you're right in retrospect, but the rule of thumb is that you try to focus a Lucio and you just whiff, and you're if you send a Zen orb at a Lucio and miss, that's just 0 value, whereas if we put it into the tank, it's guaranteed value. So that's like the math that they usually think of it as.
And
because
when NYXL played the Titans, how many times did Nene have? I'm blanking on the Lucio for the Titans now. How many
Slime.
times
Slime?
did
Slime.
Nene have Slime at 10 health, and then Slime gets away, and then all that time he had wasted? But sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Hey, Slime's a great example for that, because the weird thing is everyone says they pocket Bumper. There's times where they do nothing but nonstop armor pack Slime, where he'll be the objective staller, and this is doing the effect of what I'm talking about, where the Lucio player can touch objectives and ride and create chaos in a way that no other character really can, because he's just so hard to hit, and there's no hit scan on the enemy team that's just gonna like 2-tap him to stop him from doing that.
Right.
That's the thing. So the effective tankiness you could get out of a Lucio is sometimes even more. But yeah.
I want to circle back a little bit to the rotations that you were talking about, Bob, because I think you're right. Like, these two teams definitely have it down, and like it's almost like a textbook guide on how to play goats. If you go watch this final, everything that they do is a amazing goats play. One of the plays that really surprised me and highlights the rotations that both of these teams have is in Blizzard World, when Vancouver Titans is attacking for the second time and Shock is defending. They lose the first point, then Shock is able to retake it once they go into the payload part. And as soon as they kill Vancouver Titans, and I thought this was super impressive by them, they just charge forward and they take the little high ground above the spawn, basically blocking Vancouver from coming out the door, but having the advantage of the high ground so that they can't get really killed and they can engage on their own terms, which I thought like, oh my God, this is such an amazing position from the Shock. They might just be able to lock him down here. But what does Vancouver Titans do? Without even skipping a beat, they see where Shock is located and they immediately are just like, you know what? Long way around. And they just take the long way around and immediately go around, forcing the Shock to lose their high ground based on position. They're like, we can't stand here anymore. They're just gonna bypass us through better positioning. So they have to like drop the location, and now they're on even terms. And this happened so many times throughout the match where it was a battle of positioning, and both teams were like really duking it out to get the right position before they even attempted to engage. And like I said, letting the other team get some percentage on the point or move the payload. But if they didn't have the position, they wouldn't engage. And I thought that was, I don't know, such a pleasure to watch. And it's such a display of teamwork that you don't get to see in many of the other matches.
Yeah, and it's actually I mean, it's obvious when you look at the team fight times. Like, the team fights went on a long time because they kept joshing each other for that different, position before they would move in. So
And the
the
way
fights
they
took a
traded
long time.
cooldowns was so effective. Like you were saying, those matches took forever because they were using the cooldowns when appropriate almost all the time. Super is like one of the hardest Reinhardts to earth shatter ever. Like, that guy maybe got earth shattered once in the entire match. Is amazing how like on top of it he is.
There was a lot of good bumper shatters, but there was also a lot of good super shatters. I think
Yeah, there was a lot
both
of good
of them.
shatters. It was a
Yeah,
good match.
they were both really good. I'm thinking of the Blizzard World map, right? Where San Francisco had lost second point, had lost it, right? They came in with one ult, and Vancouver, I think, had 4 or 5. And Vancouver used all of theirs. And in that time, San Francisco was able to gain like 3 or 4 more ults and win that fight. And it was unbelievable. I think there was also a map where
You're talking
Sinatra
about
got,
Blizzard World?
yeah.
Oh yeah. That map was insane. I would say, like, if you want to watch people go ultra instinct, like literally just be playing based on their instincts and not even think about
There
anything
was
else.
no
Like,
plan. It was like Trickle City, and then they clutched it out. I don't know what happened, but I think there was another map where Sinatra got 2 grabs in one fight, and it was like so close together, and I was just like, what is happening right now? Like, Sinatra, I have vocally not been a huge fan of Sinatra because I think he is a little bit prone to tilting, but I won't know my true thoughts on Sinatra until they start losing. So
Yeah,
I'm
me
gonna keep
me
with it.
either. But I'll tell you, man, Sinatra and Super are growing on me.
Okay, but they keep saying things like Sinatra's become such a better team player. Okay, a team player.
Dude, he
but
really
they have
has.
been-
He really.
but
If
they
you
have
look at his
been
play
winning.
since the World Cup, and you look at his play now, he has definitely become more of a team player.
Because they're
Hands
winning.
down.
Is
No,
my argument here.
I
don't
don't
think
know
he's
if
on a
that's the
crusty team.
reason,
Not
but
I
really team player.
disagree. When you are behind, you try to be the hero. We see it in every team that is not doing well in the Overwatch League. Their
Muma.
Reinhardts go for
Well, all the Houston
shatters that they
Outlaws.
shouldn't. Okay, there's a lot of other not great teams right now too. Okay, but you see people go for those hero plays, right? Because they want to make that play. They want to get their team back into it, right?
Which
Right
is
now,
what
he doesn't
Sinatra
have to
did
be
in the
that
World
person.
Cup, and he definitely fed. But I do think that he's growing. I mean, like I
hope
was
so.
the biggest Sinatra hater. I have tweets out there where I bag on him, but I mean, I have to give him credit and say he is really looking like he's becoming a team player, and I have to give him props.
I think we will see that when they go through adversity. That's all I'm saying. Is we cannot judge him now.
The thing that
But yeah.
sucks is I don't think he starts in a 2-2-2 lock.
I know, me either. I don't think he's start. I think
Well, with
he's
the
been playing too much
27
Zarya?
I think
DPS on the team,
Striker
Yeah.
and damn it, I'm blanking again. But Striker and
Architect.
Architect, yes,
Architect.
start.
Yeah. who's just like another Fleta, basically architect. He's insane. I'm with Bob on this one, where I'm taking a fat L with, because I didn't think much of the shock, but when I said those comments like early on with my like preseason power rankings and stuff, I was thinking over the long haul. So we'll see if my concerns and Mel as well. Like I'm in both camps here apparently, but
Mike,
come to fruition when we have a lock 2-2-2, and you know it's not like Sinatra's the best Zarya in the world. If you predicted that was going to be the case, like good on you. But I didn't predict that because I saw his Tracer play and it wasn't up to snuff. But I think we can credit Krusty a lot, bringing him on board. I think he, you know, from reports of even talking to other people when I've interviewed them, Sinatra is a good teammate in terms of like calm support, and you know he's not toxic in that way. He's supportive and brings you
Did
you
you
along.
talk to anybody at the World Cup?
That was too long ago.
Too long ago.
Maybe before they lost. I can't remember. Maybe he's not. Okay, I don't know, but I think he's you know matured in that way. And Krusty runs a very tight ship because you don't not drop a map. Bad English, but you don't go flawless in a stage without running a tight ship. So all those boys are in line, and you got to give it up to them. My real question is when they start playing a meta that they're not one of the best in. You know, granted, Krusty did form the Boston Uprising to be one of the best dive teams. Maybe he's just back to that again. It doesn't matter. Krusty's the MVP here no matter what, because we can talk about Sinatra and Super all we want. I feel that you can swap those guys out and the Shock are going to be sick because Krusty's just going to put the best players forward and they're going to be scary moving ahead.
I still contend though, real fast. Once they go to a 2-2-2 lock and 2 DPS are chosen, the San Francisco Shock is going to lose all of their other DPS. Because right now they've got like 27 DPS on their roster, right? Like I don't know, like 7 or something. They have a lot. They have a lot of DPS on their roster, and I think all of them are just waiting for that moment that DPS is in the meta, and once they choose, they're gonna be pissed because they're good enough to play on any other team.
But flexing in and being a specialist on DPS is much different than Goat's meta. I play Brigger Zarya, right? So like if you're a Widow specialist on the team, you got a spot, right? And then you'll come in on Widow maps, and you know that'll we forgot how that's like, you know. So having multiple DPS makes a little bit more sense when you know they're forced to be played. So, but I do hear what you're saying. You know, they'll want jobs like Baby Bay, for example. I mean, he's probably smart to move on.
Oh, dude, and like he's definitely growing on Atlanta, hence, you know, beating NYXL twice in a row. Like Baby Bay.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, Baby Bay is definitely not Defran, but I think he is definitely really good. And despite his arrogance that you see, the guy is a real true team player. It's the weirdest thing ever because usually arrogance annoys me. But with Baby Bay, it just makes me smile. I don't know how to explain it any better. We've interviewed him a couple times, and he's just, I mean, he's a good kid.
I mean, I think you can be.
I watched him on Oversight like this
of yourself
the whole time.
and still be tasteful, you know.
I swear to God, he sat like this the whole time on Oversight.
No, he didn't. He actually had really good thoughts on Oversight. I really enjoyed that episode.
Thoughts. I think he was great, but he did sit in his Baby Bay model pose. Sorry.
I do want to bring back Krusty though. I think that he has earned his name in the Overwatch League, and he's gonna be one of the most coveted coaches going around after this because everything he touches becomes gold. Like as long as he's directing a team, they seem to do really well. They seem to be able to adapt to new metas. And like you said, Freedo, like he puts people in line. Like if you look at Shock right now, they're not just like a great team. Everyone in all those positions is looking like an all-star in that position. Everyone in the match was pulling their weight. Rascal was doing some amazing plays on Brigitte that you just don't see the average Brigitte do. He stopped like 2 shatters on the spot with his stun as Bumper was about to shatter them. And and just like on top of it all the time. You got Moth creating plays, displacing people at the times that they were needed, then falling down on it. Sinatra has become the Zarya of the league. Super is pretty much up there too, to be the contestant for best Reinhardt in the league, next to maybe Bumper and Fusions. Um, so I don't know. I feel like everyone in that team is like basically like an all-star, which you don't see in some other teams. And I think that in big part of that is because of the coaching. They're looking so good is because they're so good at doing their jobs and working together that they kind of shine. So I don't know. I think that people are gonna have to start learning from Krusty. Whatever he's doing it really, really well.
To
Was
that
he on
point,
Uprising before?
yep.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
Krusty.
What do you
I mean,
think the difference is
obviously,
between him? What do you think the difference is, real fast,
Oh, we lost I play.
between him being on Uprising with such a like low budget build up players method and him being on Shock, which is like, let's get anybody and everybody we can and just stock up this roster, right? Like, what do you think his mentality change was like going from that two extreme?
I
Because
think
they're the two
think
extremes of the league.
his mentality was like, "Holy shit! I have a lot better players to work with. I'm gonna
Right.
mess this up." But like, I think it's actually like, if Boston had kept Krusty, man, with like Huck's style of getting player talent cheap and Krusty's style of coaching, they could have been amazing. It's unfortunate that they couldn't get all along and that had to end. But like, I just think Krusty's a good coach.
But maybe it's better for both of them, right? Like, because Boston is still doing well with Huck's style. And I think maybe Krusty didn't agree with Huck's style, right? Maybe Krusty had more of a San Francisco Shock mentality where it's like, we
There's
need
actually a lot that
all
goes
of
into
the
that
money.
story, but nobody talks about it. Except for
Yeah,
Baby
we don't-
Bay in our interview on YouTube.
But like, I think it's just interesting to see that he can succeed in both types of teams. But I do give a lot to Krusty. Fredo, go.
Oh, I agree. I think if we don't have Krusty on the Shock, we're not talking about Sinatra and Super as being the best in their role necessarily. I mean, like mechanically, Sinatra was always sick at Zarya, but I don't think that either of them get so much value. Like both of them popped off in ways that I would say the difference between this stage final and the last stage final was that before they looked clean, played a cleaner goats game, but didn't pop off in the key moments. Whereas here, when it looks like momentum's turning for the Titans, they have a pretty strong defense. It looks winnable. They're in situations where they should win. Both of them step up to the plate and make the big plays. In fact, I mean, Sinatra like blew a couple grabs, but it doesn't matter, right? In this meta, especially in goats meta, it doesn't matter what plays you miss or whiff or feed or whatever, as long as you make the pop-off moments when you weren't favored to win. Like those are valued way more in the time bank. I'm sure there's some
Unless you
mathematician
make
that
like
can...
a Nene Grav.
Right, the last play of the game, obviously. Right,
It
right.
also
But
helps that
Watch
he
me
was
whiff.
getting like 2 grabs
Watch
per
me
fight.
nay-nay.
Like whiffing one is not that big of a deal when you get like 18 of them.
Yeah, but we were talking about their shatters before. Both of them hit some good shatters, but I feel like Super in the Rhine mind game head to head, Super outshattered Bumper way more in my head. Like I
Yeah.
don't know the math with it, but it seemed like I don't think it ever really went the other way. Whereas there's a few points, I mean, especially on Blizzard World A, 2 minutes left. They're caught in a grav. He shatters the whole team, and they just explode, and everything. It breaks it open. Where it looked like, it could have been a full hold in 2 minutes. We're going to map 7, and heads and hands.
Yeah,
Titans
Bumper's best shatters
what's
were
it called?
counter shatters.
Well, okay, so like there was a lot of shatters that came from on both sides really, that came from the Reinhardt stuck in the grav, and I don't understand how those shatters get off. Like, how are you stuck in the grav with your whole team or almost your whole team? And it's something I do in comp constantly. Like people have given me shit about it, but I'm like, dude, if I shatter them all, they can't kill us while we're in the grav. And it works, but I don't understand how it works in the pro scene. Like, how does Bumper or Super drop their shield while they're in the shatter? I mean, he has 5 other people that can do damage to the people in the grav. There's no reason for him to swing. in that type of setting. Like, it makes sense for me in Diamond Q to do that, because I can catch a Ryan slipping, because I've played against the Ryan that map. I know what he likes to do, if he's aggro, if he's not. But how can this work in the pro setting?
I think Super caught Bumper out more on that, but I saw both of them block it as well. So what you'll see is
Right.
them feign going in for a swing and then shield right in front. So quite a few of those actually did get blocked, I think, if I recall correctly. But
And a lot of the times the Ryans wouldn't get shattered, but somebody else, like the
Right.
Brigitte or the Lucio, would get shattered. Like they actually were looking for the Lucio and the Brigitte out a lot.
It's like they're surrounding the grav, right? So they don't shatter right towards the Rhine. They shatter towards the people that are outside of the Rhine. Because everybody has to come
But
close. You can't just
I
all
saw
gather
him
behind the
shatter
Rhine shield.
Ryans, though. Definitely.
Right, but think of how
throughout
much
this match.
damage
they
that...
get each other, and I think it comes down to them playing the aggression. Like when the grab comes out, the Rhine that gets grabbed knows that everyone's gonna collapse on him. So as long as he has decent timing, he might just catch him, right? Because everyone's coming towards him at that time.
It could have been ultimate, like, miscommunication, too. Like, they counted the ults wrong, right? Like, they're like, Brian doesn't have shatter, but maybe he did more damage than they thought he did. And he did have shatter. But you also think of, like, Brian's hammer and, like, how much cleave damage and damage he can do to people just so sucked up into a ball, right?
Believe
Like,
me, I know.
yeah, but he's one of their main sources of damage there. So if they don't have a Diva Bomb or something to, you know, make that damage happen, then it's just a grab where people are sucked up for a second. They get a little bit of damage, the trance comes out, and then it's done.
Yeah,
you know,
but
and it's
whoever's
worthless.
ult counting for the team should be telling the Ryan, hey, Ryan has shatter, like during
Right, but they
that
can't
graviton.
always be completely accurate, right?
Definitely,
so sometimes
definitely.
I'm sure they misstep and they're like, I don't think he has it yet, and he does.
I mean, I honestly would love to just have ultimates show for both teams. I would
I
love
think
that.
that takes a lot of the...
Percentage, no, but ultimates, I would love to see it, because it would really make the chess play better for a lot of people.
I think half the game, though, is wondering if they have ults. Like, I think the game's too centered around ults right now anyways. Like, yes, I think they should play a big part, but they shouldn't be the only part. Like, they shouldn't be the only reason you win a fight. And I think right now, a lot of times you're only winning the fight if you have ultimate advantage.
Yeah.
And I don't love that. So I think that showing the other team's ults too is just another, like, now you're going to play more passive, and like now it's going to be more of a defensive battle instead of maybe getting aggressive and getting whacked. Like, that's fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, but either way, it was a good finals match. I think we can all agree that there's two S tier teams, and they were in the finals. NYXL is
goats teams. Let's make that
yeah,
distinction.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's
That's the game right now.
that's
What do
the
you mean?
game. So I mean, like,
You're the GOAT.
like
We might as well
think
name it that.
I think that NYXL is a really good team, but I don't think they rank up to Shock or Titans. I think it's Shock and Titans and everyone else at this point. You can look at some A teams, but they always, like, you look at Dallas, you look at XL, you look at the
Did you just put
Gladiators
Dallas and
from this
NYXL
last-
in the same tier?
Yes. You look at London, like
Houston.
all
Let's
of
throw
these
Houston in
teams.
there.
Yeah, we can't do that because that would be absurd.
That'd be lying.
But like,
Come on.
like all of those teams are week by week. Like, maybe they'll be good this week, maybe they'll be good next week. But Shock and Titans have really just honed in on this meta. We should give them props. We should tell them thank you for, a good finals, 2 stage finals in a row, when really the last 2 stage finals, 1 and 2, were the only reason they were good was because Shock and Titans Clash of the Titans. Like, I mean, they were really good and they made it exciting. Like, without those 2 games in the 2 different stage finals, we have crap stage finals. Like, look at this
They
last
actually
week.
made it fun to watch goats. I'll give you that.
Yeah, NYXL loses to Titans 4-1. Shock beats Spark 4-0. Shock beats Dragons 3-1. Spark beats
Wait.
Spitfire 3-1. NYXL
Props
beats
to the Dragons, by
Gladiators
the way, for
3-0.
taking away the one match.
Right.
Fuel
Yeah.
loses 0-3 to Titans. I mean, it was like the first 3 days were crap.
The
And-
Dragon's Shock was probably the best next to the final. I
Yes,
think.
and I
Right.
Yeah.
totally called that they would take a map. I was like, dude, that 4-0 does not show how good that game was, because that game was close in a lot of spots, and that's unfortunate for the way they score. But what
I
can you
mean,
really
Dragon
do about
Shock,
that?
I think, good job, Dragons, taking the first map off Shock, right? Like, I think Shock hadn't lost a map since the beginning of the stage, and they lost a map to the first map to Dragons, so I love that.
They
Nope,
took
since
the control
last
map
stage.
too from Shock.
They what?
They took the control map, which is I think what
Right.
they're really good at playing too. Like Vancouver couldn't take a control map from Shock. Dragons did.
But I think because Dragons play DPS. And I think Spark beating Spitfire was exciting. I mean, I think Spitfire had shown some good stuff this stage.
Really ugly games. Sorry.
It
Exciting.
was an ugly
outcome.
game,
The
but it
gameplay
was
was
exciting.
terrible, though. It was so bad.
It was fun.
Yeah, it's just been like the stage finals have not been the greatest this season, but we
The
can
stage
thank
finals have.
the stage finals have not been
The
great.
semifinals and the quarterfinals have not been great.
Okay,
The
so what
finals
I'm talking about, the stage finals, is
Finals
this
weekend.
whole
You mean the
Stage
playoffs.
weekend.
playoffs.
Yeah, playoffs.
The
Sorry.
playoffs is what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Shock and Titans have given us some robust, fun matches, and so I was just saying we should thank them for that. And
I'm
unless
thinking
you guys-
reseeding.
Reseeding?
Reseeding is the real victory here. Yeah.
Dude, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
reseeding something that happens in the NFL, many different sports. I mean, I think it's actually the best way to do it, because you're like, oh, we need to beat this so that we don't play this team, yada yada yada. I mean, I think it's the best way to do it. I think a like straight up bracket like the March Madness would not be the best way to do the stage finals or the grand finals. But
It would be even
unless-
worse without it here, because especially with like the strength of schedule and all that, and yeah, it'd be way worse not to have it.
I will say I am a little pissed about Dallas having to play Vancouver first. They should have played London, and Dallas could have beat London. Maybe London was a little stronger, but Dallas still could have won that map. They had no chance to beat Vancouver. They were seeded with Vancouver because of the weird divisional difference. If they're gonna do that, I'm cool with it. But we need 4 from each division in the stage playoffs if you're going to seed that way. If not, seed it exactly as record shows and don't have any diversity with the divisions, because that part kind of makes me mad.
I mean, does it really matter? They lost in quarterfinals instead of semifinals. I mean, they would have lost
it
anyways.
would have mattered
didn't
to
get any
me.
money
It
for
would have
going to
mattered to
semifinals.
me.
Like, I'm just saying. But I guess my biggest takes from the quarter and semifinals is the Gladiators. Like, they looked really great during the season, and they looked really weak against NYXL. And I'm also not too quick to discount NYXL. I think NYXL has more of a long-term plan than a short-term plan. And
Okay,
I
Death
don't-
Blow.
no. I am not Deathblow. I am not. First of all, Deathblow's an Outlaws fan. Okay.
Yeah, but
Love
he
it.
does that whole like
Aren't you an Outlast fan too?
he
Stage
does
finals don't
like
matter.
yeah, he does that whole stage finals don't matter, and that's bullshit.
I'm not
Hot
saying
air.
stage
Hot
finals
air.
don't matter. I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm saying that I don't think NYXL is below third in the standings. I think that
No, I think NYXL's
are a
third.
very
It's
strong
like
team.
second. It's like I thought they were second.
They are. Yeah.
No, we're
Vancouver
just
was
she's
actually third in the
talking.
standings.
Yeah, she's talking power rankings.
Okay,
like-
I was talking like overall standings right now for all the stages. I think
They're
NYXL
second.
is second or third.
They're second, and Titans are actually third. But I guess my point
Wait, no,
is
Titans.
like,
No, wait, hold on. You're talking
Titans
about
are first. NYXL
Yeah,
second.
Titans are first.
Shock's third.
Shock
yeah, I
hasn't
mixed
lost a
that up.
regular season game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they just
Titans
lost for the
haven't
first
lost a regular
time.
season game.
History was made.
Yes, Titans are first. Shock is third. Okay. But I guess I just don't think NYXL is bad. I think that I don't think they're, you say S tier is Shock and Titans, and you say NYXL is below that, and I don't know that you can back that up.
I don't need to back it up. I'm just saying my opinion. Shock and Titans are S tier. NYXL is the top of the A.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
I would say everyone else is B as well. I think there's only one A tier team.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that too, Frito.
The next tier is
Everyone
B,
else is B?
Whoever you put in there. And not everyone
Not
else.
yet.
Like,
No,
Ah.
like
I just mean-
like Gladiators,
Everyone except for the
Dallas,
Outlaws.
London, they're all B.
She thought she had a free pass. She's like, Outlaws are B? All right. Put the whole hands together to B tier. No, like whoever you would think is next to them in A tier really is B tier, in my opinion. And Bob seems to agree. So,
Yeah, definitely.
at least for now. And it sucks with Goats Minute too, because it feels like if you're not the best, you're just the worst. If you're not first, you're last at Goats Minute. That's how it feels. It's rough. It's rough out there.
Yeah, as Monty has pointed out, like, why even try doing the goats when you just can't beat the Titans in Shock? Like, you just can't. And
I don't know if I want to have this debate.
all right,
Could be a really
So-
long episode.
yeah, we are going to move on. I don't think unless anybody really wants to point out something from any of the other games, I don't really know that we need to talk about the other stage finals games. Was there anything that stood out to anybody before I move on to our last segment, the All-Stars game?
The only thing I wanted to mention was just congratulations to Shanghai Dragons. Like, come on, coming
Yeah,
from
dude.
0-49 or 46 from like last year to making it to stage finals and taking a map off of Shock, like they get the award for the most improved team for sure.
I also
Definitely.
think I was going to mention them as well. They will look good in a 2-2-2 lock if it does come. Whereas other teams may not ding. Yeah, I like the way you said that too. Other teams I don't think will transition as well. Yeah,
Chengdu Hunters.
yeah Dragons are way better than them. Way better. Way better.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
They wouldn't
once
have
the
a-
Hunters have
I
to
don't
play
think they
against
did
other
good.
DPS, like Farah might not last in the sky as long as she does.
Listen, I don't
Even-
care. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they're going to be
Definitely
playing the
agreed.
same meta as everybody else and losing. I think in a 2-2-2 way more often. I think it was a smart strategy. I mean, like I give them all the kudos in the world, but just saying they're good just because they went off meta and leaned into it and were the off meta team, the one team, and you can't prep for them, and teams that don't know how to deal with that lost to them when I don't think they would if they were forced into, let's say, a 2-2-2. It's really hard to do that off meta shenanigans in a 2-2-2 lock. I don't think that it exists, like, because everybody's playing all those characters. You don't have a refined
But
meta
at the
where-
same time, like you've got a team like Houston Outlaws who could have done that 2-2-2 craziness, but didn't because they were trying to perfect their ghost meta. And
Eh,
Chengdu did much better than them.
Nah, they did practice it. I don't know. You watch Flame go on that podcast or something. They, people
I did.
say that as if they didn't practice it, and they did, and just didn't succeed with it. And they did pull it out on the maps where they could win with it, and did win with it. I mean, they won 3 maps, I think, at the stage, right?
I'm
And
not
one of them was against
saying-
Vancouver on Control, right? So like, they
I'm not
know
saying
they're
they
good at
should have
damage.
gone DPS.
Okay,
I'm
even
not
the
saying they should've.
Outlaws
I think
in
it would've been
stage
worse.
1 beat
It might-
Vancouver on Koth using DPS comp.
I thought it was stage 2, wasn't it?
Outlaws
Both.
was stage
Both.
1. Oh, they might have done it in stage 2 too.
They did the Torb strat on stage 2, I believe.
All right. Well, in
But-
stage 1, they definitely beat Vancouver on the first map, which was Koth. It was I don't remember the name of the map, but they definitely did win one, and then went to Goats and just got wrecked for the next 2 maps. But like Vancouver's definitely I don't know why I brought that up, but Vancouver's definitely weak to DPS comps. They've been
As long
weak
as we
to
all
it.
agree, Jinmu is incredibly overrated, especially by Mel.
I agree completely.
What?
Sting is the real deal. Jinmu is a pretender.
Listen, get out of here.
I like him. I like the way he plays, but I don't think he's as good as many of the other DPS. And I think he's their best player. That's the problem. He's their best player, and I don't think he's as good as many of his counterparts in the league.
They were fun. They were fun to
I
watch
disagree.
because they were breaking the mold, and they
What about
won
aiming?
doing that too.
I mean,
Not the best ball
definitely
either.
breaks the mold like he's
He's
the
the guy
only
playing ball
good
now.
ball. Yeah, he's the only ball that you watch in the league that doesn't stop. Like all the balls stop. Everybody who plays ball, they stop and they like line up what they're gonna do. Ming is just always moving, never stopping. I mean, he's played it a lot, obviously, and he's just really good at it. And others will get good, but he's definitely the only ball that I think is top tier.
Okay, by the way, Houston did not play Vancouver stage 1, so it was stage 2.
My bad, my
Sorry.
bad. All right, well, moving on. So we're going to the last segment of the day, and it's been kind of a long one, so I don't know how long we'll go on it, but the All-Star Weekend is next weekend. I'm actually pretty excited about this. I know a lot of people are kind of upset about the players that are in the All-Star game specifically. Like guys, it is a
Listen.
popularity contest, period. It's not the best players in the league. So just
We don't even
take
need to
that.
talk about the players. Let's just talk about the talent takedown. That's
Well, hold
really
on.
the highlight of the show.
So the players that were voted in on the Atlantic side were Jonak, Arc, Carpe, Pine, Poco, and Fusions. Okay, these are all popular picks. Wait, no, that's not right. Wait, so starters
I
went
think- I
in
think
over. Wait, hold on.
they added-
Starters
they added
went
the rest
in
of the pick.
over the added people.
Yeah, starting lineup are in blue and yellow.
Okay, well the
The
blue
reserve lineup.
the blue ones because Fusions was not voted.
No, they already added the
Meng
staff
was
picks.
okay, all right. So I don't remember who was actually voted, but the votes were pretty bad. Starting out, like it was a whole lot of Chinese players, probably because China holds the popular vote in the Overwatch League. Shout
Listen,
out
I
to
just wanna
China.
point out
Love
that
you guys.
there's
Thank you guys for
the-
watching.
3 of the 6 starters for the Pacific Division are Chengdu Hunters.
All right. Well, so what I just named for Atlantic was the starters, not necessarily the ones voted in by fans. The Pacific starters are Ryo Jae-hong, Yvetal. I don't even know the
Hunters, main
yeah.
support.
Wow.
Give it all, right?
Vital.
I
Yvetal.
haven't even paid attention. Jim Mew,
Jinmu.
most overrated player in Overwatch League. Mel.
He is not overweight.
Come on, man.
I just keep
you agree
I
he's
just keep messing with you. I just keep messing with you, Mel. And then we have Fleta, Goosh,
Can't believe you called him
Gooshway,
fat.
Ameng. Well, I got called fat at the Dallas Fuel opening our home game. Or no, he said he
Stay
thought
on
I would be
task.
fatter. Yeah, okay, sorry. All right, so those are your starters for the actual game.
Did you
but
go
the
over?
actual
Did you go over the tanks? You missed Gushwei and Naming. Did you?
No, I said it. You just were talking
Alright,
during
sure.
it. So that's what you're going to have for that game. But honestly, I don't think that game's going to be very exciting. I think that a real game in the All-Star weekend doesn't really work, and it's going to be even less than the World Cup is because they have way less time to practice, and the World Cup is considered tier 3. So let's just move on from that.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that'll be a game, but let's go on to all the other stuff that they have going. And I will preface this by saying, Switch, when he came on our show last week, we had this in the notes, but we didn't end up talking about it. Switch was like, there's no tanks and supports in all of these extra matches. It's all DPS. Like there's like one of them that has supports, but literally no tanks in all of these extra matches. So Mel, why don't you go over what the extra matches are going to be?
So there's an All-Star Arcade, right? So it's on the 15th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern? Pacific. So the first one is Sibling Rivalry. They've got 6v6, 3 Genjis, and 3 Hanzos per team. And it's on Hanamura. That was fun. And I think they tried something like this last time, but you could pick either Genji or Hanzo. You didn't have to have 3-3.
Instead of 3-3.
All right. So then they have Healers Never Die. Which, okay, we've seen a lot of healers too. But 66 support only, 1 hero limit, and it's on control on Nepal. So you can only have one of the 6. Isn't there only 6 healers?
I think so.
Okay.
Lucio, Baptiste, Anna, Zen, Moira, Brigitte. That's 6.
Mercy.
Oh, and Mercy 7.
Okay. Yeah, Baptiste made it 7. Okay, then they have Terrible Damage, 6v6 damage oldie, 1 hero limit, hybrid on Hollywood. So we finally get to see our DPS heroes. Then we have Keeping the
For
Peace.
the first time in the Overwatch League 2019 DPS.
Right? No. We saw him earlier in Sibling Rivalry. Don't worry. We got a lot of them here. Then we have Keeping the Peace, 6v6 McCree only, on an escort, Route 66, which is interesting. And then we have Thanks, but no tanks to round it out, right? Like, I feel like that's just the icing on the cake here. Thanks, but no tanks.
I like that they're being humorous a little bit with, at least acknowledging that there's been a lot of tank play in the league. So that's kind of like their way of making fun of themselves.
Right.
I think it's pretty cheeky, but it's cool.
So it's 66, no tanks, 1 hero limit, hybrid. That's the only caveat. No tanks. Can't have any. They should have done 2-2-2. But it's fine.
All these are pretty fun, and actually I'll probably watch them a lot, have a lot of fun. Although I do think there would be a place for an true all-star game. At least I think I would be interested in it, to select like the true performers. Like, let's look at the stats and what they've done for their team and select them based on that. Have like 6v6 of like cream of the crop players of the current meta have at it. And maybe it wouldn't be like that amazing because those teams are not getting coached, but I think it would be a cool display of like, hey, these are the people who have excelled right now in this meta. I think
I'll agree with that if Captain Planet chooses the teams.
Okay.
Why can't they do it like the NFL does, where the players vote?
Oh,
Like,
players, players vote would be great
idea.
too.
You can't vote for yourself or your own teammate, I think.
How many times have you watched
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm not watching this either, but I
Exactly.
think just getting the vote on your career is nice.
Yeah, but the Pro Bowl's a little different because players are worried about getting injured. That's not something we have to really worry about in an all-star game in the Overwatch League.
But I guess at the same time, you saw the preseason. Like, you put a team out there to show their stuff, they're not going to do it, right? The same way that players from other teams mid-season are not going to give their strategies away to win one all-star game, right?
Well, they'll just run fun stuff.
You put players in,
but then
they might
give
other people strategy because the players want to win regardless of what they're in.
No, they don't.
I don't think they want to win that much.
Not all stars,
No,
no.
not
They'll
all
just,
stars.
They'll just troll and goof around, which is fine.
Right, but
There's
I
a
think
core
that's why they
balance
have
of them.
arcade, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying. You put a true all-star game together, and all you're going to see is trolling. So what's the point of an all-star game, right? You might as well see your fan favorites that you haven't seen all season, like Fleta and Pine. You know, like people you haven't seen play.
Fair.
Like, here, let's see them play. Like, put them in, coach. You know, like, come on. I think you're not going to see a competitive game no matter how you lace it or ice it or do whatever to it. You're not going to see a competitive game. It's just not in the cards. There's too much strategy to go into this. I think your best bet at seeing a competitive All-Star game is the Overwatch World Cup.
Lace it
mean,
or
yes.
ice it?
I don't know.
Did we get Yiska on the show with his weird, like he was saying, you wear a lot of shoes. They were like, you mean wear a lot of hats? Like,
Okay.
like what's
Okay.
lace it, ice it? I don't even know what that means.
Podcast
Like
episode
icing on
over
the cake, lace on the table. I don't know. Like,
I'm fine with that, Mel, but I just think we should also have an acknowledgement of skill. Like I care more about the valor of it, I guess, or just the record keeping. I was all pro however many times, and it just means something because there's a lot of players that are just never going to get that. Like this is what happened to Prophet. Basically, Prophet's not flashy enough, except in the finals, not flashy enough to have a massive fan following. Meanwhile, he's probably MVP. You know what I mean?
Right.
Last year, and that solves itself when you have some sort of like all-star or all-pro or whatever you want to call it, right? If this is our all-star, fine, you have that, but I want like an all-pro voting. So like everyone amongst them
I think that'd be really
acknowledges
cool.
each other's success, and it's sort of a badge. Like this season, I gained it. You could have it on your jersey or something. Like it would just be a cool thing.
What if we did like
recognized
fan
by your
favorite?
peers too is like that's a huge honor, right? Because it's not just like random people doing it, but it's like the people you're playing against recognizing like, hey, this guy's an amazing player.
The fans don't know anything, Mel. We've been through this.
Why
But
don't
I'm
we
saying
have?
this is
Why
this
don't
is a
we
fan
have?
favorite game? Like, so we
Okay,
have a
you can have
fan
that
favorite game, and then like mid off season, you have an all-star game that the players voted on throughout the season, or like at the end of the season, right?
I don't care about the game. I just want the award, really. Like if you have the game or
So
not,
why
whatever,
don't
but-
we have an award show at the end, just like I always bring up NFL. Sorry guys, it's the only sport that I follow. But why don't we just have an award show at the end, where where they give out awards instead of just the
Like
MVP?
player
they give
voted?
out best deep. Yes, player voted, best player voted, analyst voted, and caster voted. And where they give out best DPS, best support, best where they have an actual like they could
Rookie of the
stream
year.
it. They could stream it on Twitch. Like you can have Zachary's mom there, like supporting him and like making everybody cry. Like Zachary's mom,
wasn't
by the
just
way,
Zachary's
is
mom.
awesome. She is
By the
awesome.
way, Hydration's mom and Corey's mom was there.
Yeah,
I knew
well,
your
I
plans,
just
but-
met Zachary's mom like at the homestand. The lady's amazing. But I mean, why don't you have that instead? But you guys have talked about all these different things, but you didn't talk about the most important match of the All-Star weekend. The creme de la creme, the talent takedown. Best walkouts in the history of the Overwatch League Stage 1 was the talent takedown. What walkouts are we going to see this time around? We have, so for the Atlantic, we have Puckett, we have Side Throw, we have Zoe, we have Bren, we have Monte Cristo, we have Doa and Hexagrams. And on the Pacific side, we have Danny Lim, which I think is awesome. I just met this guy recently too at the home game. The dude is really, really nice. Mr. X, Uber, Wolf, Achilleos, who I do think has the best voice in Overwatch League now. Like his voice just is commanding and awesome. Micah Burton. Who the heck is Micah Burton?
Mika.
Mika Burton.
Misha. Is that
Yes.
what's his name's daughter?
Yes.
The Reading
Jordy.
Rainbow guy.
Yeah, well, I know him as Geordi from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, you know him? Wow. You're
Well,
friends.
no, I don't know him. No, I
Well,
know him
know
from
last
that.
We go way back.
And then we have Semler competing this time around too, which I'm really, really excited to see. So that is your
obviously-
Pacific Atlantic.
Obviously, Pacific Division is stacked. They got the South Korean. I mean, it's over.
Oh, oh, I hate that argument.
I hope he's the worst player in the lobby. That'd be so great.
You know he will be. You know he will be. Like, let's be honest. I was there when he was started translating stage 1, and he's like,
To be honest,
ultimate? Like,
let's
he had
be
no idea what
honest.
Overwatch was.
This could be an actually good match because last year Reinforce was definitely it was definitely unfair to have a top 500 former pro player in that match with, I mean, plat at best, to be
I don't know about
honest,
how
with all of
good
these
it's gonna
people.
be, but this one is probably gonna be the most tryhard of all. Like, if anyone wants to win, are these two teams against the other one? So
Oh,
you know
yeah.
that they're gonna try. How good it goes, we don't know.
Hey,
but you know,
Plat
it's gonna be
Chat,
fun
this
watching
is
them.
for you. Plat Chat, this is for you. This is a Plat game right here.
Yeah, it's
And-
definitely a plat game. I don't care how many times Bren says he's in Diamond Q on the stream. He's not.
Oh my gosh. I love the trash talking between all of them, like, and then I love that, like, Sideshow and Brent are fighting on Twitter, and Monty's like, "Oh, great, this is gonna be fun," you know, like, it's just great. I think the only interesting thing is that Semler and Hex are on different teams. They're the only casting duo that are on separate teams.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, I just think that's weird. Like, couldn't they have put like Danny on?
See,
One
and
of them
I think Sembler is so zen. Like he's just
Whatever.
gonna be like whatever, and Hexagram is like, I want to kill you. No.
I
He's
feel
on
like
the
it'd be
worst team.
if Bobby and I were on teams, I'd be like, oh no, don't put me on his team. I would like to kill him. I would like to be the winner, not the co-winner.
This is what we do at
Okay.
every Omnic Lab game night. We always are on the different teams, and yeah.
Sometimes
So-
I feel bad for Bob and pick him because he hasn't been picked, you know. So, but it's nice.
But so that's gonna be the All-Star weekend. I actually think it's gonna be really good this time around, especially with the tools that they have. You know, with the workshop and everything in, like they can actually make these games perfect for what they need. I think it's gonna be neat. I think it's gonna be a good time. I think it's gonna be a good relaxing thing for everybody in the Overwatch League. We're about to take a big break. And I can't wait to tune in. I'm going to watch every second of it. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on to wrapping up? This has actually been a pretty long show, guys.
They
But, I
always
mean,
are with me. I apologize.
Blame Fredo.
Talked way too much.
I'm
dude,
just kidding.
Never.
I blame
never.
I'm
Bob.
used to having to
I
contain
actually blame
myself.
Bob.
You don't know how hard it is for me to get myself into small, digestible chunks. Into like I'm aiming for 10 minutes. Like we're lucky every video is not 30, so it takes a lot of work to do that. So I just come on here and just let it all out.
Well, yeah. What I mean is because this is a long form podcast. Like, there's so much context, especially with what you do in a YouTube video. If you say this one thing, then if you don't, say, well, this, and this, like, then people come at you with, no, this isn't right because of this. Yes, I know, but what I was talking about was the majority of the time, and so. Yeah, it's hard, but like this is why we do this. We enjoy talking to Overwatch people, and we're gonna keep doing it, guys. All right, so we are gonna close this week's episode up. I invite you guys to join our Pick'ems League. You can find the link in the show notes. I forgot to do my Saturday and Sunday pick'ems, so I have dropped down. I'm a little upset about that because I would have been 3 for 3. But, oh well. All right, we encourage you guys to follow us on Twitter at AlRecap. If you want to say something a little bit longer, please send your emails to contact@alrecap.com. You can also find us squatting in the Omnic Lab Discord. It is a wonderful place to do anything you want to do. Overwatch Omnic Lab is one of the best strategy podcasts there is. They've been one of the best since, the game started. So definitely jump in there at discord.me/OmnicLab. We stream on Twitch every week live Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find that at twitch.tv/OmnicLab. iPlay, why don't you tell us about Omnic Lab Game Night and when it is this month?
If you guys want to catch the game night this month, make sure to show up. The last Friday, in this case, is going to be May 31st, I believe. Yes, May 31st is the date. If you guys want to find a good group to play and hang out and spend the night, bring drinks, bring sodas, bring snacks. We were there for a really long time, so see you there.
And if you want to support us, the best way to do it is just to listen. Like, I thank you guys week in and week out for listening to the show. That really is the best way to support us. Talk about what we talked about on social media. Talk about to your friends. Tell your friends about the podcast. That's the best way to support us. Another big shout out to Siegel #1 fanboy for posting our stuff. Thank you so much. If you want to go a step further, you can leave us a rating on iTunes or on Stitcher. Does it too. And just tell us what you think about the show. We probably won't read it if it's not 5 stars, but we might. We have before. So if it's actual good, productive, constructive criticism, we will take it into account. If it's just this show sucks, well, we're not going to read it.
You could just send us an email, though, if you have constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Just leave the positive things on the iTunes review.
Well, just give us a chance to change what you want changed before leaving us the bad review. If you want to support us even further and love us to death, you just want to pinch Mel's cheeks, you can go to patreon.com/AlRecap. $1 an episode can make a difference in these podcasters' lives. It really can. It actually has. I mean, we've gotten to go to so many places. Thank you guys so much. I thank every Patreon. You guys are amazing. All right, Mel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at @MelOverwatch.
And
that's really it.
And iPlay, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames.
And Freedo, where
Same
can we
thing,
find
Twitter.
you?
At Your Overwatch YT. Check it out.
And you can always find me on Twitter and everything that I do at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Thank you guys so much for coming and hearing us talk about the playoffs and 222 for a little bit longer than I expected, but we have the 222 expert on the show, so it was probably a I know you have stocked videos ready to go as soon as that announcement hits. No?
In
You
his
expect
head.
way too much from me. That's the one thing I've learned now.
Well, I mean, you keep putting out such a good product. I think that's just, I'm sorry that I expected.
I'm making it up as we go along, but thank you for your kind words, as always.
He's like a Vancouver Titan, right? He adapts to the game.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to be compared to that right now, but taking a big L is what you're trying
Well,
to say?
you don't want to be compared to Bumper, but you'll be compared to Twilight. You'll be compared
I'll
to
take
some
Bumper.
others.
He goes for it, man. I think I am YouTube's Bumper, now that I think about it. We swing and a miss sometimes.
Oh, man.
You go all in.
You might as well. Go somewhere in life.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been a good time. We will see you next week.